My name's Max Burt and this is my story. I am a landowner in St Croix, New South Wales 2446, Australia. My sons and I are successors in freehold title to the original Crown grant of our land, granted by the Crown on the 3rd day of December 1835. In order to initially get the business of Australia moving and to promote the territory of New South Wales, the Crown provided these Crown grants to eligible Australians free of charge in order to develop farms and businesses to collect tax and encourage settlement. In doing so, the Crown has alienated or transferred its rights in the land to the private landowner forever and in perpetuity. At law, the Crown is not above the law and cannot derogate, detract from, diminish or lessen the value of its transferred rights in the granted land. Case law underpins that the Crown cannot giveth on one hand and taketh on the other. I've created AustralianLandRights.com.au to better inform Australians and publicly expose government-private property injustices that have affected the lives of many Australian families for far too long. In our drive for a fair and reasonable judgment from the highest court in our land, my family is helping all Australian landowners. My farm is my home and castle for my sons and I. Like most fair dinkum Australians, we have worked very hard to get our homes. In our case, our land is not only our home, but is how our family survives as farmers. We have endured 6 nationally declared disasters in the last 4 years, fires, floods and drought, and like most Australian farmers, we had to dig deep during these bloody hard times. Our land is our place of identity, and it's supposed to be our place of peace. My 400-acre farm has been a beef unit since 1828 and has been zoned rural primary industry since the Port Macquarie Hastings Council was conceived. As a family, we mind our own business, cause no harm to others, and our desire is simply to just live in peace. That said, it is my belief that Madam Mayor Peter Pinson, her Port Macquarie Hastings Council, the New South Wales State Government, and a select group of St Croix landowners are trying to feather their own nests at the expense of my lawful private property rights. I'll be taking this matter with the support of Australians to the highest court in this land to prove my point at law. Our land sits on the main residential growth corridor of one of New South Wales' fastest growing regional cities, Port Macquarie. Public records confirm that Madam Mayor Peter Pinson and her Port Macquarie Hastings Council have publicly exhibited my land in its entirety in the St Croix Draft Structure Plan as environment conservation zoning. As the largest landowner in the St Croix Structure Plan area, this has been done without any consultation with me. I find this very rude, disrespectful, and downright un-Australian. It is my opinion the planning sector of the government is cunning, sneaky and devious. They label structure plans in local government areas as draft plans. It is my belief the government mislead the community by assuring the community up to the point of and during the public exhibition that the plan is only a draft and their land won't be affected. After public consultation, the government can, at its discretion, make the changes to become law. They downplay to the community the legal power of the draft structure plan. Although I have objected many times, I have been assured by Minister Anthony Roberts, Director Jeffrey Sharp, Director Melissa Watkins, the Executive Manager of Strategy, Duncan Colton, and the Madam CEO, Dr. Claire Allen, that it's only a draft plan and a decision for the final plan has not been made. My land has remained publicly exhibited as environment conservation in the Sandcrocs draft structure plan for over 2 years. If it's truly a draft, then why, despite my many protests, has the land continued to be publicly shown as environmental? The action has destroyed my rural land value. Because the government has not acquired or purchased my land, it is their opinion that no compensation is payable. However, what the environment zoning does to my family is as follows. 1. I cannot build any of my 4 DA consented homes, one for myself and one for each of my 3 sons and their future families. It is my belief that shelter is a human right. This action threatens my family's survival. 2. Farming is an illegal activity on land that is zoned environment conservation. This action directly threatens my family's survival. In short, the government is threatening my survival, and that is a human right. The government is attempting to destroy my private property rights, which is a degradation of my Crown grant. It is my belief that this government action would not pass the Australian pub test in any state in our great country. The question that remains is, why would the Port Macquarie Hastings Council and the New South Wales State Government want to rezone my land to environmental conservation? Why haven't they edited the draft structure plan after 2 years of written submissions and objections? Through thorough investigation over the past 2 years, I have discovered that the Port Macquarie Hastings Council and the New South Wales State Government want to rezone my land for 2 reasons. Reason 1, at this time my land is zoned rural RU1 primary industry, but once they rezone my land to environmental, the value of my land drops dramatically. The government will compulsory purchase 50 acres of my farmland for the National High Speed Rail project. This will be done at environmental land pricing, which is well below rural land value. I have seen public plans that confirm this. Reason 2, they want to use my land as the biodiversity sacrificial lamb in the Sandcroc structure plan, which will enable the Port Macquarie Hastings Council, the state government and a select group of Sandcrocs landowners to clear land and develop the Sandcrocs area for high density residential development, free of environmental offset costs and at my family's expense. They deem the rezoning of my farm from RU1 to environmental is a conservation measure. This pathway is known as Strategic Biodiversity Certification and is only available and limited to New South Wales councils and the New South Wales State Government. In short, through this rezoning, this will enable the government to steal my valuable biodiversity assets that form part of my bundle of private property rights and apply them to the Sandcrocs structure plan area. This will enable them to develop the Sandcrocs area to high density residential without paying any environmental offset costs. It is my belief, to cut it short, the government has developed a devious vehicle to launder valuable biodiversity assets from private property owners for their own greedy agenda. The government owns 5,000 acres of land that adjoins my property. If they want to develop Sandcrocs into high density residential, then why don't they use their own biodiversity assets instead of stealing assets from me? It is my belief that the New South Wales government wants to steal biodiversity assets from private landowners because it seems that New South Wales has a shortage of biodiversity that is required for infrastructure and the development ambitions of the state government. It appears to me that the government would rather steal biodiversity assets from private landowners before having to use their own. Let's not forget that the government is increasing its biodiversity land asset portfolio by the day, free of charge and without compensation to private landowners. Furthermore, it is my belief in most private land developments as part of the development application, the government gets free environmental land under the veil of protecting the environment. Otherwise, the development application, or DA, is not approved by the local council. Is that just? I believe not. In my opinion, this is disingenuous. It is my belief the government portrays to Australians that they are protecting the environment, when in reality they rezone land and steal biodiversity assets for their own benefit. This unjust rezoning proposal will financially ruin my family and prohibit my sons from continuing to work the land and to build futures for their own families. For 2 years, I haven't had a decent night's sleep, concerned with this government attack on my private property rights and my family's future. And like most good Australian men, I take this very seriously. Over the past 2 years, I have authored a library of written submissions in objection. However, my efforts for resolution have been all but ignored by Madam Mayor Peter Pinson, Madam CEO Dr. Claire Allen, Councillor Mr. Adam Roberts, Councillor Miss Danielle Maltman, Councillor Mr. Joshua Slade, Director Mr. Jeffrey Sharp, Director Melissa Watkins, Executive Manager of Strategy Mr. Duncan Colton, Senior Strategic Planner Mr. Kieran Metcalf, Northern Region Director Planning and Environment Mr. Jeremy Gray, a select group of Sandcrocs landowners, and New South Wales State Government ministers together with their delegated directors and staff. These submissions will be displayed on australianlandrights.com.au for the Australian public to be the judge. This content is available free of charge for my fellow Australian brothers and sisters who are facing the same issues as our family. It is interesting to note, I am not afforded the same rights as landowners in Sydney who have access to the New South Wales Community Commissioner. I reached out to the New South Wales Community Commissioner, Dr. Roberta Ryan. She wrote to me and she said she is not able to advocate for individuals and communities outside of Western Sydney. Dr. Ryan suggested that I seek assistance from the New South Wales Northern Region Director, Mr. Jeremy Gray. Mr. Gray has told me he lives in Port Macquarie. Mr. Gray then directed me back to Dr. Roberta Ryan. Talk about going around in bloody circles. As a family man, I abide by the laws of Australia. I hold any Australian that works for the government, local, state or federal, with the utmost respect, as it's their Australian duty to always work in the best interests of all Australians. If government workers put their own self-interests before Australians, then they should be held to account by the people, for the people. I believe my story has parallels to the classic Australian movie, The Castle, that exposed the mistreatment of a landowner by the Australian government. One could say that our story is The Castle 2023. And just like Darryl Kerrigan, I'm taking these buggers to court. They can't do this to Australians. It's just not right. The actions of all parties currently involved prove that this injustice is evident in the year of 2023. It is my belief that the only difference today is that the government hides behind unlawful legislation to enable legalised theft of private land and property rights. Why do I believe that New South Wales legislation is unlawful? For over 2 years, I have done deep research with my grateful support of good, honest Australian lawmen who, in my opinion, are very uncomfortable with the current private property matters. I have come to the conclusion that select government legislation is unlawful and is in direct conflict with the original Crown grant. That is my source of private freehold title. It is my belief that much of the Australian legal fraternity has forgotten that the Torrens title system is only the proof of title, whereas the Crown grant is the original source of title and presides in authority. It is unlawful for the Crown to degrade or diminish the value of its own grant. On Tuesday the 14th of March, my sons and I attended a Meet the Candidates Night for New South Wales state elections for the seat of Port Macquarie. After 2 years with no answers, we decided to take up this matter with the running candidates. The election is this Saturday, the 25th of March 2023. This meeting was hosted by Mr Greg Franks, representing the Hastings Residents Association. It is my belief, based on my personal experience at that meeting, the Hastings Residential Association is government controlled, and in my opinion, this conflicts with a fair and equitable democratic society. A video of that meeting follows. I invite you to be the judge.
Question 9 is from Max. Can I ask again for people to please not interject when the question's being answered? There's no point asking the question if you don't allow the candidates a chance to answer.
Some of the candidates.
If you don't like the answer, don't vote for them. Don't interrupt.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. If you own land in New South Wales, then my question should interest you. I own farmland in Sandcross in the city of Port Macquarie. My farm's been a beef unit since 1828 and has been zoned rural primary industry since the Port Macquarie Hastings Council was conceived. Public records confirm that the Port Macquarie Hastings Council and the state government want to rezone my land to environment conservation for the Melbourne to Brisbane high-speed rail project.
Oh, you're kidding.
And as the biodiversity sacrificial lamb to enable Port Macquarie Hastings Council, the state government and a select group of Sandcross landowners to develop the Sandcross area into high-density residential free of environment offset costs. The government can also compulsorily purchase 50 acres of my land for the national, please give me some respect, for the national, I'm getting to the question, for the national, give me some respect.
Let him speak!
Let him ask the question.
My question to you is this. Do you support the land rights of New South Wales farmers and New South Wales property owners? Yes or no? And if so, once elected, what will you do to stand up and take action to protect and support private property rights of New South Wales landowners who are being used and disrespected to unjustly enrich local councils, the state, and the New South Wales state, and residential land for farmers?
Can you show some respect to the other people here?
Thank you very much.
Everybody
You might want to, there's someone there who's videoing. I don't know the conversation there. Anyway, I'm not going to go into, I have met with this gentleman before in relation to his matter and made representations on his behalf.
Somebody's telling him off there.
I'm very happy to talk with this gentleman later. Obviously, there's a lot more in this issue than just a simple answer from the table. Obviously, he has concerns, so I'm very happy to talk with him and find out more.
Absolutely, obviously very passionate about this principle. I'm quite passionate about the fact that high-speed rail can be good for Australia. You know, you mentioned the high-speed rail and you mentioned biodiversity offsets. They're all things I'm interested in learning from you and just how they would affect you. But as far as council and state government, I'm not qualified to answer your question. I've got to admit that. Thank you.
Have we met? I know we haven't met. I'm asking you, have we met? Thank you. I'm asking because I wanted to know if we've met, and I've missed meeting.
I've communicated with you on many occasions.
Okay. Well, I don't recognise you, but obviously...
Well, I thought you were for the community.
I don't recognise you personally, but obviously whatever you've brought to tonight...
Oh, come on, Peter.
You
know.
I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
I know we haven't met, but I don't know what the issue is that you've brought here tonight, but I'm happy for you to make an appointment with me to go through whatever that is, because I don't know what this is, because I've not met you. So, and I don't know what your name is, I don't know who you are, and this is the first I'm hearing of.
That's not true. We've sent you so much stuff, eh? All the council stuff. That is not true, and that's a barefaced lie to stand here.
I can't believe it.
Please, just don't get. Thank you. We're moving on to the next question. Thank you.
Come on, you know exactly who I am.
His first name is Max, and I believe his last name is Burt. B-U-R-T.
Oh, so Max Burt.
And his son.
Okay, I know who you are now. Feel free to make an appointment and let's talk about it.
Hey, you ring me, lady. I'll be trying to get hold of you for over 2 years.
Please be respectful or you will be asked to leave, Max.
Actually, I feel very intimidated.
Stand up.
I was disappointed that the candidates did not answer my simple question, yes or no. Madam Mayor Peter Pensing claimed that she did not know me. I find that very interesting, considering in the last 2 years, Madam Mayor Peter Pensing has been copied into all of my submissions and was further copied into my letter to the Minister on Tuesday, the 14th of March 2023, the same day as the Lake Cat-Eye meeting. Furthermore, I have a letter addressed to me from Madam Mayor Peter Pensing's private solicitor, dated Thursday, the 9th day of June 2022, that legally threatened to silence me. It is my belief that this is unacceptable behaviour for a running New South Wales state candidate for the seat of Port Macquarie and the current Mayor of Port Macquarie Hastings Council. I am a reluctant participant in this matter, but I have no choice but to take a stance in order to protect our legal property rights. It is my belief that the survival of my family and my future generations is a basic human right. The government theft of Australian private property rights has gone on for too long. It is my opinion it has to stop, and it has to stop now. I am one of many Australian landowners who has been left to fight against this injustice. I have empathy for the very sad stories about unjust rezoning to fuel residential development that has left many Australian families to fend for themselves against the government, who, in my opinion, have bullied isolated Australian landowners into submission. Isn't the government meant to act in the best interests of Australian people? In the name of truth and justice, help our family lawfully lead this cause for all Australians. We need to take this matter to the highest court in the land to restore justice for my family, the Australian people, and to hold the government to account. The government is not above the law. I'm only one man trying to survive. In the last 4 years, I have been impacted by 6 nationally declared disasters, drought, fires and floods, as well as fighting for my private property rights. After very hard farming times in the last 4 years, I do not have the funding to take the government to the highest court and hold them to account. What I need from you is to stand with our family as Australians and consider donating to this very important cause. We can all make a difference. We understand that every Australian's position is different, and any donation, big or small, will go a long way to assisting us to hold the Australian government to account. My sons and I will never back down until we have justice, and in doing so, justice for all Australians. I extend an invitation to you to head over to australianlandrights.com.au and get involved. Let us all take action today to legally restore freedom of private property rights of Australians. We welcome your support. United, we stand, and divided, we will fall. Thank you.